Welcome to the No More Late Fees podcast. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Danielle, and we're just two best friends and ex-Blockbuster employees rewatching some of the best and worst movies from the late 90s and early 2000s. This week, we are talking about the 2003 rom-com Down with Love. And joining us today is our pal, Gavan Duffy. Hi, Gavan. Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, glad to be here. Love it.
If you want to get to know Gavan a little bit better and you haven't listened to our trailer, hit pause, go check it out, and then come back. The most important thing is that you come back. Okay. But before we dive in, let's get into some housekeeping. Where were you, Jackie?
I feel like we were in sync until you paused.
Because maybe it's just that maybe we're a little off, because I swear to God, sometimes I'm going and I don't see your lips moving. Jeez. We'll get it right one of these days.
One day.
I know some of y'all are probably saying, why don't y'all just record this shit and stop doing it? Because it's fun. Because we like to torture you.
And one day we'll be like in the same room and nail it, and then we'll have nowhere to go from there.
We were in the same room. We did it for Head Over Heels, and I don't know if we got it.
Probably not.
Yeah. Good try, though. If you love the podcast and you want to support us, here's a few ways that you can.
Did you know writing a review and or rating us helps us get more listeners? So if you want to be featured and help us grow, head to your favorite podcasting platform and leave us a review.
And while you're there, make sure you hit subscribe so that you can get all the notifications when new episodes go live.
And if you want exclusive content, stickers, lives, and access to our Burn Aughts playlist, head over to patreon.com/nomorelatefees and sign up to be a Patreon bestie.
Shout out to Shannon coming through with the comments again.
She
said we have that clip of the bus from our Spider-Man episode, and she called us elitists. Coming from her, we already know. I can't, but yeah.
I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah.
Usually Shannon's just roasting Danielle, and I have such joy when that happens.
Yeah.
So I can't wait.
Love you, Shannon.
Still love you. Never, don't go changing.
Don't go changing. Now let's dive into Down with Love. So it's 1962, and feminist Barbara Novak pens a best-selling book that details the drawbacks of love. She encourages women to forego serious relationships with men in favor of independence, workplace achievements, and satisfying sex. I don't see anything wrong. Despite her success, many men are taken aback by her progressive views, including slick writer Catcher Block, who decides to expose Barbara as a fraud by making her fall in love with him. However, his plan has unexpected consequences. The movie stars Renée Zellweger, I don't know why I said that weird, but whatever, Ewan McGregor, David Hyde Pierce, Sarah Paulson. I figured if I didn't say Jerri Ryan, Jackie would kill me.
I was so thrilled when she came on screen. I was like, oh, 7 of 9.
Yeah.
Jackie, she loves the Star Trek, as we all know. And
sorry, I was gonna go on a Jerri Ryan tangent, but continue.
And Tony Randall, the floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you have not watched Picard, top tier Jerri Ryan, she is fantastic in it as 7 of 9. Oh, like chef's kiss. And also, if you don't follow her on Twitter, you should, because she is also fantastic on Twitter and gives no shits and calls it as she sees it.
I could do the Twitter thing.
You should watch Picard. It's very good. You like sci-fi. I don't know
what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, your dad.
It's Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard.
Right.
And it has Jerri Ryan in it.
Right.
And the whole crew come back.
And the whole crew.
It is great.
Riker came back.
Season
so good.
Season 3 was incredible. It was incredible. And so unexpected too.
We were on episode 4, I think. So, but I've tried to avoid Trek Twitter right now because people are going nuts about the finale, and I can't wait. Okay, I'm done gushing about Jerri Ryan.
One day I will do it. I promise you.
I don't believe you, but continue.
One day I'm gonna do it.
Who was the
There's
movie
only
directed by, Danielle?
hundreds of hours of episodes to catch up on, Danielle.
I think she could just start with season 1 of Picard.
Which Star Trek got the hot guy from the Crossroads movie? I'll start there.
Oh, Strange New Worlds. That is a really, really good series as well.
Does he take his shirt off on that show?
No, he kind of gets burned a lot.
What?
In some flash forwards.
But
you also have Rebecca Romaine as Una, number 1.
Okay. I've seen the movies. Your dad made me see most of them.
The old ones or the new ones?
The ones that came out in the 90s, 2000s. I saw those with you guys.
Okay.
And I saw
Have
the
you seen the Kelvin
ones.
timeline? Yeah, with Chris Pine.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think that doesn't make me that bad, right? And I've seen Galaxy Quest. Does that count?
It's an honorary Star Trek film, I think.
Have you watched Orville?
I have not seen Orville.
Orville is really, really, really good. And you can tell Seth MacFarlane, he pays homage to Star Trek while making it its own
thing.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'll watch an episode. I've watched an episode of Orville. I don't know if it was you or Ken that made me watch it.
Probably.
I don't want to say made. I was there and things were happening. But if I watch a Star Trek season, you have to watch the only season of Firefly.
I've tried to watch Firefly. I'll try again, but
I just don't understand. It's literally the same. It's in the same genre. Like, what?
Actually, I take that. I tried to watch.
That sounds like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
I'll try, and Ken will be happy if I sit down and watch Firefly. I'll try.
I love it so much, and you'd be honoring my dad because he very much that was our show. Anywho, the movie was directed. The movie was directed by Peyton Reed, who, if you don't know, directed Bring It On. What's wrong, Jack? You got real excited.
No, his
filmography,
his roster of movies
legit.
It is so legit.
I'll let you say it then.
Oh, I don't have that in front of me. I know he did all the Ant-Man, so he's part of the MCU.
He's done
2 episodes of Mandalorian. Let me fall down my Star Wars and MCU rabbit hole for a second. And the filming technique, I can't remember the technical term right off the top of my head that he used in this movie. He did not use. I'm sorry?
Was it the Technicolor thing that he did?
I think so. He did not use that again until he shot the 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. So I can tie The Mandalorian directly into this movie.
Yes, he did all the Ant-Man movies. He did The Mandalorian, 2 episodes on that. Bring It On. He directed Yes Man, which I actually enjoyed, but I haven't watched in a while, so I don't know if that's going to be good still. And The Breakup with Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn. He's done good, let's just say. So, and yeah, I don't know what I was gonna say. It just flittered out of my brain. Anywho, the screenplay was by Eve Aller and Dennis Drake, and you can watch the movie right now by renting on Amazon or Apple. I'm really fudging pissed because when we were doing our roster and for the year, I remember going on HBO Max and saying, "Oh, Down with Love is here. Great." You know? I go looking for that shit and it's gone again.
Well, I Googled where to watch Down with Love and it popped up with a direct link on Disney Plus. And then when I clicked it,
Europe.
It was like, nah, son, It's not here. And I was like, second movie in a row I've had to buy on Amazon.
We both bought it. I don't know why I didn't tell you that, like, I was buying it. I'm so
Because
sorry.
I bought it as well.
someone
You did?
Yeah.
As soon as I buy
I-
something, I'm like, I've bought it, don't buy it. Someone does not reciprocate.
That's not true. I usually tell you. That's not true. I do tell you. I just slipped into a coma today.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
I was just really mad. Also, I'll tell you why I'm really mad later.
Okay.
Why don't we get into those ratings rewind?
So you know the drill. Before we get into the movie, we'll reveal a rating our Y2K versions of ourselves would give. Then at the end, we'll see if our current selves agree with our initial rating. Our scale consists of would buy it again,
The best would play on repeat.
5-day rental,
Would watch again.
2-day rental,
Yeah, okay, but nothing to write home about.
and same-day rental.
Absolute trash. I don't have anything funnier to say about that with this movie. No reference point. We're going to start with you, Gavan. What was your Y2K rating of this movie?
I think my Y2K rating would have been what's the kind of the middle kind of
2-day rental.
2-day rental. That's the one. Yeah. That would have been my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
For me, I bought it. I owned it.
I knew. I knew you would. This
I
has Danielle written all over her.
It has such pretty colors.
That's why your background is literally just her apartment.
I just want this life, okay? I want to live her lifestyle. Jackie.
So I remember watching it. There's a twist that I did not see coming, so I don't even know if I finished it in the day. So I will say same-day rental as my Y2K rating.
So remember when I said I wasn't sure where you were going to fall?
Mm-hmm.
My gut instinct was, she don't like this shit. This is not in your genre. That's okay. That's fine. No worries. Let's get into the box office. So this movie had a budget of $35 million and it made $39.5 million, referencing back to when Gavan said there was only one DVD copy. This is why it bombed. It did not do well. Let's hear what some of the reviewers said. The critics. Down with Love was A.O. Scott in the New York Times. He said he praised the director, Reed's buoyant homage, Zellweger's Doris Day-like ability to swivel engagingly between goofiness and sex appeal, McGregor's Sinatra-like wiry wolfish energy, and screenwriters Allert's and Drake's canny cocktail of period vernacular and deliberately labored double entendres, finding the movie intelligent and amusing with a glorious, hectic artificiality. But he questioned the point of the exercise. That's a real superfluous way to say.
I don't get it.
I don't.
Acting great.
Like,
I don't get it.
Great. Yeah, everything's great, but I didn't like it.
And as we read through Peyton Reed's entire filmography, this is the only movie in his filmography to not reach the #1 spot during its opening weekend. It actually opened the second Tribeca Film Festival, where it made its premiere. It opened in New York and then was released countrywide a week later, May 16th, 2003. And the film was released as counter programming against The Matrix Reloaded. The film performed worse than expected. I don't understand how they really thought that you could have counter programming to the Matrix movie after.
I think you could. I mean, it's not going to make anywhere near what the Matrix makes, right?
Right.
But if you had like not a super niche movie. If
Yeah.
you had more of a broader audience, Sweet Home Alabama or Miss Congeniality, you would have had a fighting chance. But this movie is very specific.
That, yeah. And I
Absolutely,
wonder if Peyton thought this was like a
Gonna be
rom-com.
that.
Yeah. To me, it is very niche. Like, he was trying to say again that this was not a parody, that this was like a continuation. But for people who didn't like those kind of movies or grew up watching them, just stepping in and watching, you're like, what the hell is going on? It feels like they're making fun of something. It doesn't feel like authentically just because, you
he's
know,
like assuming that we know,
right.
we're familiar with the genre as he is, which
Yeah,
we're
it
not.
was like, it felt
at
like
all.
a joke you weren't in on,
Right.
but you were kind of adjacent to. I was very conflicted because a lot of the movie I did like, but then it got into like that split screen where it was like, it looked like they were simulating sex with the split screen while they're talking on the phone. I'm like, this isn't really necessary. Like, that's where it kind of goes into parody and not just staying on like the cheeky side of, we're gonna do a 60s style movie in the early aughts. And so that's where I kind of am conflicted, because like Danielle said, I do not care for parodies. But there was some really good meat. The acting was great. Like, it had a lot of heart, but then it would just go a little too far in some scenes, and I'm just like, you lost me.
I felt the same with that scene. Sorry, do you know the phone call scene you were talking about with the split screen? Like, it is funny, but it does come across like an Austin Powers scene.
Exactly.
And like that movie is 100% a parody of, like, James Bond and whatnot. But I think Down with Love, for the most part, kind of avoids being complete parody. But then for that moment, it jumps into complete parody. Even though I think that scene is still pretty good, though. I think it's well done. Like, it is silly, but it's clever at the same time.
It is.
It's well done.
It is
Fun, it's
very well
entertaining.
done. Yeah.
So knowing those movies and watching those movies, that scene does make it feel like it's poking fun at it. It's like walking the line of parody, but it feels like it's talking to the people who watch those movies, because the split screen thing is a huge thing in Pillow Talk, and the whole premise of like the switcheroo, because in Pillow Talk, Doris Day and Rock Hudson share a phone line, I think it's like a party line or something. And he's like a Lothario, and she's just frustrated with him. So he pretends to be somebody else with like an accent. So that whole thing is very much in that movie. So when they do that split screen, it is really funny, because it feels like it's kind of like an homage to that movie, but also like the innuendos of sex, which they did a lot in the 60s. Like, you couldn't really outwardly say stuff in those movies. So yeah, I don't know. I found that to be less of a parody part, because I knew it was paying homage to that movie. But I felt like I knew you were going to say that, and I am so and so, like that, like twist was more of, well, I was like, okay, now this is getting into parody territory when it's towards the end.
Yeah.
She's like calling it all the tropes of that genre.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like a wink to the audience, isn't it?
Yeah. I also love, so there wasn't a bunch of cast and crew fun facts, but we do know that Tony Randall's in the movie. He plays Theodore Banner, the owner of the book company that Renée Zellweger's character has her book published at. and he appeared with Rock Hudson in Doris Day and Pillow Talk, Lover Come Back, and Send Me No Flowers. In all three movies, he played like the sidekick, which similar to David Hyde Pierce, like their characters, you know, what David Hyde Pierce played and what Tony Randall played in those movies, like varies. He did a really good job being able to emulate the neurotic behavior. And I'm in awe of my best friend who gets all the ladies kind of thing that Tony Randall did. So I thought
funny in this, David Hyde Pierce.
He's
so uptight. I think the funniest line for me is like, he's so uptight. He has like those little suspenders for his
socks.
Yeah, and he's like, without them, people might see my shiny knee if I cross my legs. So it's perfectly set up that he's so uptight, you know.
Yep.
I love that scene, and I love how like the secretary overhears them talking, because that is straight out of those movies. They did that a lot, where someone would hear something and think it was something else.
As well.
Yeah,
like the secretary's like, she's so scandalized by what she's hearing.
And if you're interested, Sarah Paulson did this movie before, you know, she really blew up to where we know her now. So she was looking at this movie as like a big break. So if you're ever interested to just know how she like remembers so much about this movie and the experience, there's a Vulture article that they released on the 18th anniversary of this movie that you guys should read. It's really cool to hear her set experience and just like where she was in her career and getting this role. She's like, I still don't know how I got this. And she thought it was going to be like her big break for real, because both Ewan McGregor had just came off of Moulin Rouge, and Renée had just got off of Chicago, and David Hyde Pierce had just wrapped up his run in Frasier. So like, you have all these
How can
people.
I lose?
Right. And then she did. She did.
And the Matrix came along.
Right.
Dashed all her dreams. She made it anyway. And she was fabulous in this.
She really was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like when you see it at the time, she's not famous and you don't know who she is, but so it's fun to go back.
I do have a funny detail. So she said when she was auditioning that they liked her, but they thought that she looked too much like Renée because her hair was blonde. So she wore a wig, but then I think she wore a wig to her original audition, but then she dyed her hair pretty quickly. And she's like, that's what got her to the next audition. So I don't know if you've heard this on the podcast before, Gavin. I don't even want to say it's a theory. This happens in Hollywood. Like, they believe for diversity, it's hair color for white people. So you can't have like two blonde leads, can't have like two redheads. It has to be blonde and brunette. Like, if not, then all of a sudden we won't be able to recognize people if there's two blondes. So
if there's two blondes, we'll go brain dead and be unable to follow the entire movie.
Heaven forbid. Okay. You ready to get started? I feel like we've already talked about the movie and we haven't
even started
really jumped in. So starts off with like a very classic 60s intro with like some jazzy music and like Technicolor title cards and stuff as we get into the movie. And then we see Renée Zellweger emerging from Grand Central Station. She is Barbara Novak. The year is 1962, and there's 8 million people in one.
I was paying very close attention to like trying to figure out, you know, I love when they were able to get the older cars and you see the Pan Am building behind Grand Central Station, which is really cool. And I want to say that this movie does a really good job of the things that they kind of CGI or whatever, but then the things that look really fake, but it's on purpose, you know? So I enjoy that. Yeah.
Like if they're in a car, like the background is like the 60s
Right.
on purpose. I think it looks great. I love that. I love that rear screen projection effect. I love it.
So she gets out, gets in a taxi. There are people protesting the bomb.
The atomic bomb? Is that what it is?
Didn't they drop that in
They're like
World War II? Right?
Well, this movie must take place either after or during, because they talk about the Nazi scientists that the country has taken over.
But they say it's 1962.
Yeah, I think they're talking about like the atomic bomb, and you know how they don't want it
again, maybe.
Yeah, I guess it's during the Cold War. I don't know.
We're real bad.
Well, I mean, so World War II was, and it
like
ended in 1945.
That crisis, isn't it? It was around that time.
Yeah, it's super weird that they're still talking about Nazis and the Nazi scientists.
Well, I guess that makes sense, because after World War II, or I guess towards the end of World War II, Nazis started fleeing and mostly going to South America.
Right. They do mention Argentina, which is where a lot of them went.
Yeah. And then they said the US was harboring some Nazi scientists because they were brilliant and they wanted to like essentially use them for their minds.
Which is so very true. Willing.
Yeah,
which is what happened.
And David Hyde Pierce says, but they're the bad guys and we're the good guys.
Yes. Are we the good guys? So go ahead.
And they mentioned Florida was harboring them, of course.
Yep.
Even back then we were trash.
Just 100%.
Yeah.
So she goes to the Banner House, which is a publishing company. We see a gag where she's waiting for the elevator. All of a sudden, a ton of people show up behind her. A ton of people exit the elevator, kind of block her way in. And by the time she's able to get in, the elevator's full again. But then she turns around and there's an empty elevator except for Sarah Paulson's character, Vicky. And the entire elevator is full of smoke.
Because there used to be smoking back then everywhere.
Yeah. Then they go up to the publishing floor. They talk about Barbara's book, Down with Love, that she is getting published. We meet Rachel Dratch's character, Gladys, as like the secretary who's very dowdy and typical Rachel Dratch character.
Yeah.
And then they go into what is they refer to as Lion's Den, and it's just the board, and it's just like 12 Angry Men. It's just a room full of old white men who only go by their initials.
GH.
I know. Yeah.
He's down.
TD.
Yeah, he's down with TB. Oh, I'm so sorry. No, Taylor Bronson. Like it's all very
yeah.
Just that, like, but that is such a dry humor from the 60s when they'd have like those movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty on point. And then you see a huge portrait of Tony Randall's character looking like an old man.
He is Mr. Banner. So he owns the publishing company. We learn from Barbara's from Maine, and Vicky, she's explaining to them what the book is. She's not pitching the book because it's already been purchased.
It's just that they don't freaking get it.
Yeah. And so, but she stands up and is trying to explain that this is a nonfiction book. And they're like, oh, since you're up, can you go get me some coffee?
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, it's empty. And they're like, okay, well.
Since you're making a new pot.
Yeah, since you're making a new pot. So just not taking her seriously in the workforce. Like their views of women are that they are the secretaries there to be talked down to and just ordered around.
Very Mad Men like.
Yeah, and she's like explaining like that a part of the book is that women can gain independence in the workforce or like gain respect in the workforce, and while she's trying to explain that, they're asking her to get coffee.
Right.
But I think it's a really clever scene, like good, it's well played.
Yeah, it's a very useful juxtaposition of like she's explaining what the ideal is while having to get coffee for people who are essentially almost her equals.
Yeah. Coffee and Sanka. I would like to know what that tastes like.
Yeah, I don't know I didn't know what that was. I just like the way the guy has a pipe. Sanka.
That's the guy from Psych. I love him. I just can't remember his name. And he was also in that DCOM about the boy who was a leprechaun.
The 13th Year?
No, that's the merman. Oh, it's at the tip of my tongue. It'll come to me later.
Well, we find out that according to the book Down with Love, love is a distraction and you refrain from love, but not sex. And it teaches women how to live a life like a man does. And that's based on 3 levels. First level is abstain from men altogether, and you replace men with chocolate.
First and foremost, these levels seem like one of those Ponzi schemes of like those businesses that you can, you could be a part of the business. You just have to sell this many. And when you get to this tier, you know, or Mary Kay, I guess, you get the pink Cadillac once you get to this level. But I think that would be way too much chocolate.
Maybe the sweet of your choice, perhaps.
Right.
So level 2 is taking on new challenges. And then level 3 is to be self-sufficient, active in the workplace, and have equality with men.
But I like level 3 because you can have sex again.
Yes.
Because apparently...
But still no love.
Right.
Like level 1 and 2 in chocolate are supposed to help you separate love from sex.
Right. All that chocolate's going to give you love handles. And so you got to whip them off.
And the level 3 is when the guys around the table kind of lean forward. I like that.
That's when they actually got intrigued by that. But
yeah.
I'm just surprised that like after they heard this whole thing that they were like, wait a minute, we can't put this out. Like I was surprised they were able to.
They're like, it's gonna make my wife crazy.
Right. Okay.
So they say this is never gonna work. The men of Manhattan are devious, and like essentially you'll get played because men are smarter.
Right. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But
he's like the men of Manhattan are like animals or something.
Yeah.
These were all accurate, and they still continue to this day. So
they'll eat you alive.
And then as they're like saying this, it cuts to Ewan McGregor's character Catcher Block landing on a roof. He has a private helicopter. He walks into his place of work. So he is a journalist for No Magazine, KNOW Magazine. David Hyde Pierce is his colleague and works under him, it seems like.
His boss. Is he his boss? He owns the magazine.
I guess that's why he was like, you're fired.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic like the two of them have.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that. You're like,
I just think it's so funny that Ewan McGregor's character is, well, he's a journalist and a writer who like travels to work by helicopter with like 3 women like lowering the ladder down for him, and his office seems to have like a walk-in closet and a bar, and he's basically walking around like James Bond, but he like works for a magazine.
Yes.
Honestly, I feel like so many people kind of live similar lives from what the movies show us. Like, it seemed like they got to do whatever the fuck they wanted during that time period.
I wonder if that was Peter, David Hyde Pierce's character's office, and then Catcher was just like, no, I need the shower in the bigger closet. I'm going to need you to switch with me.
Probably.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So he's arriving back from Florida. He's done some undercover investigating
at NASA. Cocoa Beach parties are wild, and all the girls had like a different skill while he was getting this information on the Nazis, the Nazi scientists. Yeah. One girl would use her
bongos,
and the other one would use her maracas to distract. And the other
I love how this is just turned into charades.
And then the other girl was all typing. She wrote the story, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just want to know what he did in return for them to all be doing these things.
He's catch your block.
He better catch my block if he's gonna make me do all that stuff. I'm just saying.
That's a t-shirt. Yeah.
So he's like off
on my block
adventures. He's like a journalist that's off on these like spy adventures almost.
It made me think about, like, I wonder if they ever approach Ewan McGregor to be James Bond, because I don't think he would have done a bad job at it.
I agree.
I think he would have been good, yeah.
Or would that just like, is he Scottish?
He's Scottish.
Yeah. So maybe the British were like, I don't think so. I don't know.
Oh, it would have been good. Sean Connery was Scottish.
Oh, that's right. So you're right.
That's true.
And he's like the best Bond, I guess.
Yeah, and Ewan McGregor would have done a great, like, 60s Bond. You know, that's kind of kind of smiling, womanizing kind of Bond,
but also like very unassuming and charming at the same time.
Yeah.
Like no pretension.
Yeah, I think now James Bond has to be more physical action hero kind.
I guess I wouldn't mind going back to a lean, mean, flirting machine kind of Bond.
Did you know that in the ranking of all the James Bond movies, Nick and I talked at length about James Bond the other day, and all of Daniel Craig's Bond films are in like the top 10 ranking of like best to worst.
When you like, they're at the top, like
at the top.
Mm-hmm. I'm not surprised. I just think he changed the genre completely, like, or more like he like renovated it, you know, and made it more serious in some ways, and made James Bond like a bona fide action star. I think the other ones made it seem so seamless or kind of silly, I guess you could say.
I remember him saying around the time of Casino Royale, the first one he did, that they felt it was really difficult to do a modern James Bond film because of Austin Powers. And it's like Austin Powers was such a successful parody of the whole thing that they almost couldn't do what's a normal James Bond movie, and had to reinvent it, and looked at kind of the Jason Bourne movies to reinvent it. So there's like, especially the first few Daniel Craig ones, there's pretty much no jokes, because they were afraid of being like Austin Powers pretty much.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Didn't even think about it. Our friend Nick yells at Jackie and I because we don't really watch a lot of them. We've seen a few between the two of us. Just a few can mean two or more.
I don't think I've even seen that, Danielle.
What? I said between the two of us. You just need to see one. I've seen at least 3. You've seen one.
I think if you grow up and they're on TV all the time, like I couldn't escape them, so that was it.
Apparently, Jackie and I could. We escaped them like the plague. And
I promised Nick that I would watch one of his choosing, and I believe he chose Goldfinger.
I think that's one of the better ones.
Gold. Is that what it's called?
No. Goldfinger, yeah.
Goldfinger, yeah.
That's also
what Pierce Brosnan.
A punk ska band. So no, that's GoldenEye.
Oh, then I don't know about this one. Then is that the Sean Connery one, Goldfinger?
Sean Connery's in Goldfinger. Yeah.
Is somebody's finger becomes gold?
No, Goldfinger's the name of the villain.
Is his finger gold?
I don't want to give it away. You have to see it. I spoil it.
We have to watch it. Nick said it is the Bond. It's not the best Bond movie, but it's the Bondiest Bond movie of all the Bond movies.
Okay. Well, I didn't promise him that I would see it. That's just your promise to him.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think like any jokes you've seen in, I don't know, like The Simpsons or Austin Powers, you'll see them all in Goldfinger. Like it's the one they've parodied the most, I think.
So, Gavin, do we have to watch the James Bond movies to really appreciate the Austin Powers movies when we rewatch them? Is that what you're saying to me?
No, I don't think that.
Oh, Lord. Oh, no.
Well, we have 3 in our time period. We have 3 Bond movies in our time period. One of them we may be doing at the end of this year with
what
Nick.
now? So what?
It's between 2 movies right now, and neither one of them.
Oh God, Life Aquatic, isn't it?
It's the other. That's the other one. Is Life Aquatic. So we have a Sophie's choice to make.
Okay.
Welcome to Bitch Watch.
Hi, I'm Sly.
I'm Witsy.
And we're 2 bitches watching TV.
We're a recap and shit talk show.
That's right. We watch hours and hours and hours of TV, so you don't have to.
You can listen and laugh along with us everywhere you listen to podcasts, and find us on Instagram and Twitter at BitchWatchPod.
Is our show original? No.
Entertaining? We hope so. This is Bitch Watch.
So the other thing that Catcher comes back with, that's his name, right? Yeah. Catcher comes back with is a NASA security pass to prove that he did his recon like he said he did. And then we cut to Vicky, played by Sarah Paulson, talking to Barbara, and Barbara's lamenting that the board had no intention of promoting her book. And so Vicky's like, well, I knew that was going to happen, and so I got you a promotion in the magazine No, and you'll be the cover story.
Which we find out Barbara actually suggested that when she was first talking to Vicky, like that about No. And also when her book got released, they went to a bookstore and she literally had one single book on the shelf.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
And then Vicky's like, well, there's one copy in a bookstore across town. Like, horrible.
You got 2.
You got 2 books.
So this is when Vicky shows Barbara to her adorable apartment, as shown.
Adorable
does
Danielle. Not even put. First of all, it has a sunken living room. Okay, it has sunken living room with beautiful colors everywhere, pinks and blues and yellows. It's just like a feast for your eyes. The whole movie is a feast for your eyes, but this apartment, I would make sweet, sweet love to it if it was a man. It is beautiful. Catcher has a beautiful apartment as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like you're a new publisher. We've got 2 copies of your book, and here's your apartment.
Yes, exactly.
She's got a balcony.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
With a view.
And she has like this, I don't know, a room divider thing that she can like get out of the shower and just go and randomly. And I'm like, why is this here? You're home by yourself. Like, you get buck naked. What does she got to go behind a divider? But okay. I love to see it.
Maybe if she has gentleman collars. So she can
if
be.
the gentleman caller is in my room, we've already done something. He's seen the goods. I don't
It's
need to be behind
indecent, Danielle. She can't get
Whatever.
dressed in front of him. It's indecent. So Peter, that's his name, right? Am I making that up?
I think so.
Peter tells Catcher that he had promised Vicky that they could have a cover story because Peter just wants some love. He has 20 diagnosed neuroses.
Catcher met him when he only had 12. That's friendship.
Yeah.
So Catcher calls Barbara and invites her to lunch to discuss the book. Catcher is under the assumption that because she wrote this self-help book, nonfiction book, she must be like frumpy, unattractive, dowdy. She's from Maine. She grew up on a farm.
Or a
Spinster. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Which it seems like a real jagged insult or something.
I know. Well, back then, I think it definitely was the worst thing to be called.
Yeah.
He's like, she's dirty. She's a spinster.
Yeah.
So they're at lunch, Catcher and Peter, waiting for Vicky and Barbara to arrive. But then my girl Gwendolyn, played by Jerri Ryan, shows up and she's got like, I got some time, Catcher. And he's like, I got the time too. And he leaves while Peter's in the bathroom. So Peter comes back. Yeah.
I just wonder, like, I guess it's assumed that they're doing it in box seats at the theater.
Mm-hmm. They call it a matinee. She has time for a matinee.
Well, I mean, they go to a matinee show, so I get it, but how do you not get banned at the theater?
He's Catcher block.
Yeah, because he seems to have everybody in his pocket. Like, alert the taxi cab driver, and that my new name is, that's later on in the movie. But
yeah, you're right. He's got everybody in his pockets.
Yeah.
So Catcher leaves.
He's journalist. That goes around in a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. So Catcher leaves as Barbara and Vicky are walking in the scene behind me. The fashion in this movie.
All of the clothes head to toe that everyone wears in this movie had to be custom made. 2, both Renee and Sarah had to have a choreographer. They had to take like actual dance lessons or whatever to be able to perform. They're not full on dancing, but they had to synchronize and everything with these scenes. And Sarah said that Renee, obviously coming off Chicago and just who she is, got it like that. And Sarah's like, I was having issues. I was stumbling with this. But
well,
yeah.
And they're in a lot of like 50s and 60s movies, like His Girl Friday is a really good example. There is a beat to the movie. Like everything is said as a rhythm, and the movie itself has a beat. And so these moments brought me back to movies like that, where it was a dance that they were doing, but they were doing it through dialogue. And in this, they were just doing it while showing off their fashion.
I would say a writer that's very inspired by that kind of rhythm that you're talking about is the writer of Gilmore Girls. If you ever just hear, like, it's so fast the way that they talk, but there is a rhythm to it, and she does it like almost on all of her shows, and it is very reminiscent of this time period. Amy Sherman Palladino is her name.
So Catcher, they arrive, they sit with Peter. Peter's like, I don't know where the fuck he went. And then Catcher calls and is like, I'm really sorry. I found this dog and I have to take care of her. He keeps using this dog analogy. And so he's like, rain check. And then at dinner, they walk in again with these fabulous, like, billowing shawls that they drop as they enter the restaurant. And he's with another Pan Am
flight attendant.
And
she says like, how's that little bitch doing, or something?
Yeah,
they're talking about the dog analogy.
Yeah. And I will say, like, Barbara's book is coming from a place of feminism, but I did find feminism in the flight attendants, whereas they knew who Catcher was, what he was about, and they were okay with it because it was a mutual understanding. Like, they were going to get theirs, he was going to get his, and see you next time I'm in town.
Catcher was community dick. And they but they didn't know that he was community dick. The difference was they didn't find out until that lunch or whatever that they had. They knew who Catcher was, but they didn't know that he was in their circle until they had lunch. Because she was like, hold on, you were with Catcher? Like, they didn't know, I don't think. So yes, they had their freedom.
But at the end, when Gwendolyn walks in, she's like, you forgot to take the key up if you were otherwise indisposed. Like, she knew.
She knew who Catcher was. She knew he was a playboy. But she didn't know he was community dick with her community.
Community?
Yes.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
But I felt like that was very empowering, where, like, they knew who he was. They had his, like... And they were okay with it because they were getting theirs. He was getting his, and then see you next time.
Do you think Catcher knows that they know, or do you think he's?
I think he thinks he's so slick.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to ask you. Yeah, he thinks he's fooling these ladies, but they're onto him from the start, pretty much.
Catcher calls it dinner. He needs another rain check. And then he calls again for a rain check at breakfast. And that's when Barbara overhears the flight attendants at breakfast talking about their dates with Catcher the day before.
Right. And the third flight attendant is actress Melissa George, which I was like, oh, I didn't know she was in this one either. So many people, random.
And so Catcher calls to get another rain check. And she tells him that he can stick the rain check where the sun doesn't shine, and she wouldn't meet him for 100 years.
That's a lot.
Very specific.
I'd have been like, rain check? It's about to be a motherfucking thunderstorm. You better get your raincoat. Bitch, I'm coming for you. You're standing me up like this.
Yeah, 3 times. Like, how many rain checks, does he think he's going to get away with?
A lot, I guess.
So obviously Barbara's upset. Vicky gets mad and leaves Peter. And then the next shot is they couldn't show a strip club. So they were at what I wrote down as a sexy lady dance show.
Their outfits look like the outfits from The Fifth Element with that, like, well,
the flight attendants.
Yeah, just the blue and the look of it, but yeah.
I was wondering because they have the little astronaut helmets on, but they were kind of bobbling as they danced. I'm like, is there a spring in there? How is it lifted off their head so they get that kind of movement? I was fascinated. I don't remember any of the dialogue from this scene. I was just hyper focused on those helmets.
During this scene, like, Patrick is losing his mind, or Peter, sorry. Fuck. God damn it.
Again. Yay.
Who the fuck is Patrick? Peter is like losing it because Catcher has ruined things with Vicky for him because he's pissed off Barbara. And, he's like, that's why I brought you to the boom boom room here, and we're gonna have fun. And at the same time, while this is happening, Barbara and just Vicky are talking and trying to figure out how they're going to get some publicity for the book. And so they just happen to walk by the Ed Sullivan Show. And somehow Vicky's able to pull strings to get Judy Garland to sing a song about Down with Love, which is a real clip from Judy Garland actually performing on the Ed Sullivan Show. And she actually has a movie called a song called Down with Love. which is a nice little tie-in, and because Renée actually won her Oscar for playing Judy Garland later on in another movie called Judy.
Correct, yeah.
Judy.
That all happens very easily in the movie.
So freaking easily. And of course, the book blows up everywhere. Now, these scenes where they show the book blowing up in other countries, I'm like,
yeah. Yeah. It's like, do you think it's like we're gonna do these stereotypes as if they would have been, how they would have been done in the 60s, or
did they just do stereotypes how they would have done in
Yeah.
the 2000s?
I
Yeah,
would
that's what I mean.
hope.
Can't tell.
So we see a couple of scenes that not great by today's standards, by any day's standards.
It's the
And then
It's the
it's
what?
the China one. It's the
Yes.
China one.
yes.
You know, that's the one where I'm like, ooh.
It's
Yeah.
not good.
Not that old. The
Yeah.
movie's not that old, you know.
It's 20 years old, baby.
Yeah, I still think, you know, yeah, I suppose 20 years ago they probably thought,
We were
yeah,
still
well,
learning some things.
yeah.
I don't even want to say learning. The difference is back then, it's not that these people didn't know better. They just didn't have any repercussions to do what they wanted to do. That's the only difference. Like, that drives me crazy when they're like, oh, we've learned so much and we moved so. No, y'all knew that shit was fucked up back then, but you knew you could get away with it, and you did. That was it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like the audience has a voice now to complain.
Right.
Whereas like in 20 years ago, people might have complained in the video store, in the video shop.
Right.
But nobody in Hollywood's there to hear it, you know.
If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it fall?
Yeah.
So now we see, because it is now a widespread phenomenon, women are rejecting men, kind of telling them, like, no, we are equal. And then
this scene, as they're showing different women like being empowered, I don't know why, but it kept making me think of the Buffy series finale when all the girls got powers and like they're like, you can't hit me no more. Like, it just felt very much the same.
So now we have, sorry, I'm trying to figure
to
out
see
what
where
my notes mean.
Oh, well, after this, she actually gets invited. What happens, Patrick is told by Block to try to call Vicky and Barbara he's like, I'll interview Barbara now that, and also he gets to see what she looks like, and he's like, wait a minute, I thought you told me that she will like look like a spinster and an old maid or whatever. And he's like, I never told you any of that. These are all the things you assume.
He says it again. He like slaps the paper or something. You told me she was a spinster.
Right. So Patrick tries calling Barbara and Vicky, and they're not answering his calls at this point. So he gets really mad that they're not answering. And then she goes on a talk show and is asked about the book, and then asked if these kind of men really exist, because she's talking about the type of men that, you know, make it hard for women or whatever, womanizers. And she just, it seems like she's like, oh, I don't want to drop names. Are you asking me for names? And he's like, well, no, not really. And she's like, catch a block. like
stares straight into the camera.
Straight into the camera.
It's like the man was not pressing her at all. And she was like, oh, you want to know? I'll let you know. And so Catcher is now pissed, and he gets a phone call because they're at his apartment, and one of his dates cancels on him, so it's messing with his stash of ladies. And
yeah, so the book has turned his life upside down pretty much.
Yes. So now he wants revenge.
The book, the chapter in the book's called isn't it something like men that change their shirts too often?
Right.
And when she says
Yes.
this on TV, he's like in the middle of changing his shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, Catcher's not in a good place at all, and he now wants revenge on Barbara, and it's just happenstance that he and Patrick are getting in a cab, and he sees across the way Barbara like talking to, I guess she's at a food, I don't know what kind of newsstand or something. So he got that like look in his eyes, about to do some maniacal shit.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually takes Patrick's dry cleaner slip and said, "Hey, I'll take care of this."
It's Peter's.
Who the hell is Patrick?
I don't know.
God damn it. Patrick is my uncle. Maybe I'm just thinking of him. Patrick is also your uncle.
Does he look like David Hyde Pierce?
He does not in the slightest. Could not be more opposite.
And at the same time that Catcher is like going to seek revenge on Barbara, Barbara can't get laid because she's too famous now. Her face is everywhere. Men know who she is.
I don't believe that. I believe you could get laid. You could get laid. She could have gotten laid.
She claims she cannot, and she's consuming an awful lot of chocolate.
All she had to do was go to Brooklyn. Nobody know her out there.
They knew her in China and Russia.
Girl, bye. Go to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody know who Barbara Novak is in Crown Heights. Trust me.
So now Catcher, he does call his private investigator and ask him to start doing recon on Barbara Novak.
Did you also think like, oh my God, how hard was it to be a private investigator back then? Because I was like, all he had to do was Google, and I was like, oh.
He had to go to Maine.
He had to go to Maine.
Yeah.
Knock on doors, ask questions, talk
I'm like,
to people.
This couldn't happen in this day and age. Like,
yeah.
one quick Google search be like, oh,
that bitch.
That's
I got a Facebook right here.
So Catcher grabs Peter's dry cleaning ticket, follows Barbara into the dry cleaners. The dry cleaner owner's wife is like, my husband's in the back now because I am down with love.
Yeah.
She started a fucking cult for real though.
She did.
I'm a down with love girl now.
And so Catcher walks in, puts on glasses, and has an American accent.
I can say, rewatching it this time around, knowing what the end is, I watched the scene in a totally different way because I know that someone knows what's happening. Yeah. So it, like, I was watching it in a different way to see, like, does she show anything different? Because it seems like she plays it pretty well.
Right.
You know, but I'm like, are there any hints rewatching this scene? I saw a few.
I didn't get to watch this with Ken, so I'm going to rewatch it because I think this is very much in his wheelhouse.
It is.
So when I do, I'll be able to kind of look at it with a different lens, which will be exciting.
I always joke, Gavin, that Jackie married a male version, movie-wise, of me. So Ken, her husband, and I usually like the same kind of rom-com-y movies, and she likes rom-coms, but like not everything. But Ken is like 100% down.
Okay, gotcha.
So Catcher creates this persona named Zip Martin. He introduces himself, and the dry cleaner lady hands him a bag with stuff she found in the pockets of the laundry that she was dry cleaning. And one of those items happened to be the NASA badge that Catcher had given Peter earlier in the movie. And so he was able to play it off like he was a NASA scientist and he had been assigned to a super secret special project in New York City. And so he was going to be here for a while.
Sorry.
And then there's a lot of like, let's get to know each other at my place. Let's get to know each other first. somewhere. Like, it's a lot of back and forth of saying without saying. Like, she wants to take him home and he wants to actually get to know her as a person.
This was before they had the term DTF.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, Peter kind of moves in on Vicky. He asks her out. They start dating.
I do love the scene, though, that she gets excited because this football player has asked her out and she's, really into it. And then she gets really pissed and tells him to go get the hell out of here because he wants to give her a manuscript. She's like, he didn't even have the foresight the decency to try to seduce me first. She's not taking being a down with love girl very well because the sex part isn't flowing the way that she would like.
Yeah. So then there's a montage of Barbara and Zip dating. They take on Broadway, sports, dancing, comedy shows, music performances. They do it all.
They went to Cafe Wa, and I was very excited because as a New Yorker, I've been there many times to see different comedy shows. So I was like, okay, that place is still open. The rest of those places, not so much. There's a lot of places that no longer exist in New York.
And then he reveals to Peter that he's doing this because he's going to write an expose and expose Barbara by making her fall in love with him, that she's not actually a down with love girl.
Yeah, she's not a city girl as she says she is.
Yeah. They have 29 dates in 23 days. I don't know why Peter's keeping track of these stats.
I do. That whole scene where they have the montage, I loved it because that's like a thing that they did in the 60s so much in those movies, where it kind of like, which is really smart from, I kind of wish they still did that because they don't have to make these big productions or whatever. Just, they change outfits, they change backgrounds, they keep going with it.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Catcher is like lamenting that he's spending all this time with Barbara. He's not getting anywhere. And Peter points out maybe he just likes spending time with her and it doesn't have to expose her for who she is. Maybe that's why. Catcher did not like that response.
Peter is also suffering during this time because he's trying to find his manlyhood, I guess you could say, and it's just like he's not also getting laid he's not having sex with Barbara? No. Vicky, thank you. Oh Lord. He's not getting laid. And then we find out that Vicky this whole time thinks that he's gay.
And she's okay with it.
She's totally fine with being his beard, like not even a problemo. And he's like, whoa. I would like to get down with love. You know what I'm saying? Which is really interesting because both Sarah Paulson and David Hyde Pierce, when they filmed this movie, they had both not come out yet. Sarah hadn't even gone on a public date with a woman at this point. It's not too much longer after this movie that he comes out, and then a little bit afterwards she does. So it's kind of like fiction. What is it? I don't know what that I was going to say better than fiction, but that's not it. Life life.
Art imitating life.
There you go. She got it. 200 points.
So this is about the time we get. So Catcher goes over to Peter's house. Peter's attempting to cook dinner. He has the orange Le Creuset pots on his stove. The only thing I noticed in this scene, and they were completely empty. You could tell by the way they were moving them. But Catcher comes up with a brilliant idea. Why don't you bring Vicky to my place and pass it off as your apartment, and I will bring Barbara here for a home cooked meal since I'm playing this kind of like small town persona Zip. And so Peter goes along with it because he can't say no to Catcher. So
That's
the
pretty
scene
much
is
it.
I do like when he gets to the apartment and Vicky sees a picture and she's like, "Oh, are these your parents?" And he's like, "No, those are Catcher's parents." But like, what I don't understand is why he didn't get to the house like before her and try to like
think about it.
Learn the fucking buttons. But I do have a question for all of us. Catcher's apartment is amazing. What do you think are, out of all the things that he has the switches for, what did you think was like the coolest thing?
I liked the bar behind the wall, but I also liked the couch that turned into a bed.
Same.
Because nothing better than laying in bed watching TV, but in your family room.
Right. 100%. I think that would be
I'm gonna go with couch bed.
I think that would be a real problem for me because then I would never go to my bed.
Yeah. So this is where, now that Catcher has this great plan in place, he calls Barbara and invites her over for dinner at his place, which is really Peter's place. And this is where we get the split screen with like the insinuated sex positions and things of that nature. And that came from, those are direct homages to
Pillow
the
Talk.
1950s and 60s screwball comedies, Pillow Talk in particular. So then she agrees, she shows up, and they have a really good time. There's more innuendos as she's looking through the telescope at the moon. And
this is probably the first scene where we're realizing that he is falling in love with her, because she's like, "Oh, it's so beautiful," and he's like, "I know," and she's like, "You're not looking at the moon." You know, the typical, it's a trope.
Exactly. And so she says that she needs to say goodnight and goodbye because she can't allow herself to catch feelings. And then he pulls her in and kisses her. And then she agrees to one more chance, and then also grabs the chocolate souffle and takes it home with her.
All I got to say is that he must have some real skillful lips that turned that around for her.
Well, she was already feeling things, and so
I'm surprised she didn't take them right there and then. Chocolate cake be damned.
Meanwhile, because everything has gone haywire at Catcher's apartment, Vicky and Peter went to some beatnik bar, and then it got shut down, so they invite all the beatniks back to Catcher's apartment. Catcher shows up and is approached by a beatnik woman wearing no top, and she quickly convinces him, I use that term very loosely, suggests.
This is where I have a problem. Usually in the like formula of this kind of stuff, once a guy's in love, he's not cheating. But he out here cheating, so has anything changed?
Not yet.
I'm not happy with this.
Well, neither is Barbara, because Vicky has invited her to the beatnik party at quote unquote Peter's house. And Barbara walks into the bedroom to just put her coat down and catches Catcher in bed with the beatnik girl. And she storms out. He runs after her, and he's able to come up on the fly with this story about how
he's been drugged.
She put something other than tobacco.
He didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, Barbara.
And she believes him, I guess, because we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of the big hints that it's all a plan, really.
Yeah.
That she let him away with it.
Right, because there ain't no way.
And now the next scene, we're back in the board meeting, and the board members are not happy because it's not even their wives who are now down with Love Girls, it's their mistresses. And so Vicky's got to go.
It's too late though. Like, even though like he wants to fire Vicky, but like, what is that really going to do? The book is out there.
Yeah.
And they've no secretaries either. Like,
right.
Exactly. But at the same time, they're having this internal discussion about firing Vicky. Vicky has been emboldened to go in and demand equality, and she leaves with a box full of her possessions.
And here's where I'd like to give some career advice. If you want something and you ask for it, do not go and say you're going to quit if you don't get it. Just ask for it, see where these people are. They say no. You start looking for a new job, and then you have the power to be able to say, I fucking quit. Don't get fired.
Yeah.
Don't quit without another job. Unless it's like extremely toxic and you're going to be sick, then I understand. But like, not smart, Vicky. Not smart at all.
So Vicky is lamenting that she wants to marry Peter, and Barbara is very obviously in love
with Catcher.
With Catcher, and so she's meeting him for another date. He has this ruse that he has to make a detour to Peter's house, in quotes.
Because the plan is that I think one of the things that he says to her to say that they're going to like to get her back is that they're going to consummate their relationship.
Yes.
And so you see these scenes where they're both like primping and getting ready for this.
Yes.
But his whole goal is to catch her. He thinks she's going to say no, that she's going to stop them from having sex because she's in love with him, which means that she's not a city girl anymore.
Yeah. Okay. That'll be his big aha moment. I got you.
Right.
Kind of. That's her exposed.
And it has to be at his house because that's where the secret recording equipment that's in plain sight is.
That thing is so huge. It's not conspicuous or inconspicuous.
I think making noises as well.
Meanwhile, Peter and Vicky are out at dinner. Peter is very twitchy, and Vicky's like, what the fuck's going on? Like, why are you acting like this? I don't care if you're gay. I just want to be married. Like, spill it. And so she essentially tricks Peter into spilling the beans on Catcher's plan to entrap Barbara so that he can write his expose. And then
there's one little moment in that scene I love, or it might be the previous scene when she thinks that he is gay, and he says, "I'm not a homosexual," and he like whispers it, and he's like looking over his shoulder.
Keep your voice down.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's twice as funny now that you've reminded me that they're both gay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
And so then it cuts back to Barbara and Catcher, and Barbara tells him, I love you too much to have sex with you. I want what every woman wants, which is love and marriage. What? I'm not a down with love girl.
I had a problem with that statement.
And then
the 60s.
Yep, exactly. Gwendolyn shows up at this point, Jerri Ryan, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, you left the key out. I thought it was cool to come in. I'll come back later. And like leaves the key and pieces out.
And
there's never really a moment when somebody like the Jerri Ryan, there's never a moment where somebody comes in and catches him, you know, like, you know what I mean? Catcher, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. They never call him by his name, so he's able to keep up the zip rouge.
Right, but she calls him out in this scene. And just when you think, oh God, Barbara's gonna lose it on him, she gives a monologue for like 50 years to explain her entire ruse.
That monologue It lasts 3 minutes and 2 seconds in a single unbroken shot, and it only took Renée Zellweger 6 takes to get right.
She is something else,
Wow.
that lady.
Wow,
She is a
wow.
professional.
Yeah.
So essentially,
Incredible.
she's
So well done.
right.
Yeah.
Essentially, she says, I'm not Barbara Novak. There's never been a Barbara Novak. I was your secretary like a year and a half ago. I didn't look like this. I had brown hair. You asked me on a date, but I turned you down because I needed to prove to you that I was your equal and could like essentially run a scam as good as you run a scam.
Well, she needed him to fall in love with her.
Yes.
And she was never going to be able to do that because, one, she had brown hair. So that was never going to happen. 2, she didn't want to be in his rotation. So she's like, I got to
stand out.
Right. And
she had to be a star. And like the way she explains it, she's like, all I had to do was create a fake author, write an international bestseller, get a meeting with you at no, right?
Yeah. Or well, know that you would blow me off.
Yeah. Like it was so long and convoluted, this plan, that she knew she was going to be one step ahead of Catcher at every turn, make him fall in love with her.
This is like, and then I'd know that you do this, and then I'd know that you would do this, and it goes, as you said, it goes on for like 3 minutes.
And this is why I don't know how the CIA isn't just filled with women, because if you really want like trickery plots that go on for days, real thought like provoking situations and secrets, it's women all the way. That's why I always laugh so hard when men think that they can cheat and not get caught. First of all, women have like intuition. They always just end up knowing. And then men just be telling on themselves all the fucking time. They can barely hold 2 lies together. Nonetheless, like multiple.
Yeah.
No offense to men, but it's true. I see it all the time. It's crazy. Gavin's like, I'm not saying anything.
It's kind of like the scene itself where Renée Zellweger, like there's the 3-minute monologue and it ends with a shot of Ewan McGregor and his mouth is just like wide open. That's pretty much what you're saying.
And then she's like, your private eye is gonna figure this out right about now. And then like the phone rings and he's like, there's no Barbara Novak, but there's a Nancy Brown that owns a P.O. box. So she reveals her secret, and
he's in shock, and she's like, I can't be with you because I love you so much.
Yes.
She like does all this shit, and she's like, bye, sucker, and she's like out of there.
And he proposes. He's like, no wife of mine is gonna live in an apartment, and she's like, I can't do this. And so Gwendolyn, the flight attendant, comes back in and is like, you're Barbara Novak. Thank you. I'm still screwing around, but I'm also going for my pilot's license, and I'm not as nice as I used to be on flights. And then like pieces out again, and that like is Barbara's inspiration that she has to continue being Barbara Novak and inspiring women to be down with love girls.
City girls up.
Yeah.
And then just at this point, Vicky shows up and she's like, fuck him. And Nancy's like, peace. And they leave.
And Catcher is up in his feelings. He's not doing well. She got him fucked up for real. Mm-hmm. He can't go back to his old ways. She won't accept his calls. He doesn't know what to do to catch her attention. It's not looking good for him. While I think Peter is still with Vicky. And
because during that scene where Barbara and now Nancy storms out, Vicky's pissed at Peter And like it is like, you're just like every other man, and that like inspires him because he's never been called that before. And so he just like grabs her and kisses her, and then she's like, this is what I'm talking about, Peter.
This is the stuff.
Right, this is when Peter becomes Patrick.
Yeah.
Yes. No. No, I don't like that. But also, he gets mad because now she's just using him for his body on a daily basis.
Mhm.
Oh, like her own personal jungle gym. And he's like, I don't get any respect around here.
So Peter goes to check on Catcher and just let him know, like, listen, Nancy's throwing away all your gifts. Like, you need to stop. You need to give up. And I think he says you need to crush her. And Catcher says, I don't want to crush her. I love her. And he doesn't care about sex. He wants to be married. And so then he sees a billboard across the street from his apartment for Now magazine. And it is Nancy's new magazine. She has outed herself as Barbara Novak. She has scooped herself so he cannot write his expose. And she also puts an advertisement out for a secretary, and she's an equal opportunity employer. So Catcher goes and applies.
I can't with this. It's so ridiculous.
And it's really just FaceTime with her to try and win her back. And
he wants her to be a hybrid, essentially, of Nancy and Barbara, and like somewhere in between. You know, he's pretty much begging for her to come back.
And in this scene where he goes to see her, she's dressed in all white with a turban on.
Right.
So then he's leaving. He starts counting because at the beginning he counts to see if a woman's going to follow him. And it always happens within 5 seconds. So he starts counting. She doesn't follow him. He's very sad. Goes to the elevator, but she's in the elevator somehow. And she's like, oh, you want someone in between blonde and brunette? And she takes off her turban and she's a redhead.
I also want to state that she's still within diversity because we never see her with the brown hair, so she's never in competition with
I could still follow it. It's the same.
We're not confused yet. Yeah. And so she says, I scooped you again. And then he says, I knew you would. They walk out on the roof and there's a helicopter that has a NASA sticker and also like a Vegas or bust on the tail. And then they climb onto a ladder and just float around New York City.
I had so much anxiety by this scene. Because I was like, why are they not climbing the ladder to get in the plane?
Why didn't they get into the helicopter when it was securely on the roof?
It was never on the roof. It was always hovering over the roof.
Okay. Well,
but
that's
like,
fair.
They swing into Vegas? Like, what's happening?
Well, and then I was like, Vegas is a long way from New York. They can't possibly hold on for that long.
They were going to the airport, the helicopter to the airport. That's the only thing that makes logical sense to me at this point. But these fools are ridiculous.
So then there are two mid-credit scenes. There's one of Vicky and Peter where they're both like at this. I did. I got myself. And they call each other at the same time, and essentially they're like, "Are you going to marry me or what?" So tie up Vicky and Peter, and then we get a whole dance montage and little song and dance, because now Catcher and Nancy have written a book called Here's to Love. And that's Down with Love.
Oh my God. Trying to think if there's any.
55 sets were built on 4 sound stages.
The other cool thing was that Sarah Paulson said that, you know, normally with movies now, they have trailers that they go to. But back in the day, they used to actually have green rooms that, you know, everyone had their own dressing rooms on set. And obviously that changed over the years. But for this movie, they did the same thing. Everyone had like a dressing room, and that she was just in absolute awe of everybody on set. But she was extremely thankful for Renée, because she said Renée never really took things too seriously, was absolutely kind to everybody on set. She just led by example. And she's like, look, I've worked with a lot of people. You don't have to do it that way. But when it does happen, it really does feel nice. She just took the time to make everyone feel supported and safe in the environment. And so she said it's just something she never forgot. And also that Renée Zellweger is like the nicest smelling person that she's ever met in her entire life. Yeah. Which makes me now want to go find her and sniff her, because I want to know what the smell of what this is. Yeah.
And the song Here's to Love, that's sung by Renée and Ewan during the closing credits, was a last-minute addition to the film. It was added at the suggestion of Ewan McGregor, who pointed out that there was an opportunity the filmmakers had to unite the stars of 2 recently popular musical films.
Yeah, obviously they both have really good singing voices, so that's like a no-brainer. I don't know why they. And your Michael Bublé, he had a few songs on.
I do love a Bublé.
You do. The songs,
Sings the intro song.
I don't, if it's Kissing a Fool and For Once in My Life, he sung those songs. And they were also on his album, his self-titled album, Bublé's. Bublé. Bubbly.
Ham and bubbly.
On August 4th, 2003, Ewan McGregor attended the Australian gala premiere of this movie as he was in the country filming Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Also in attendance was George Lucas. So, George Lucas is down with love.
Nice. Wonder what he thought.
Same. I'm very curious. So before we get into our ratings, Gavin, why don't you tell everybody how they can find you on social? Again,
you can find me on TikTok, Gavan Duffy, Instagram, Gavan Duffy as well, and YouTube. They'd be the 3 that I would mostly use.
Nice. And as always, you guys can check us out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube at No More Late Fees. And now we're going to get into our ratings for present day. Gavin, we're going to start with you. Our ratings consist of would buy it again, 5-day rental, 2-day rental, same-day rental.
Buy.
You said buy?
You would buy it?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you said buy, like it's out of here. I don't want it. I was like, I didn't see that coming.
No, I would buy it. I did buy it. So, yeah.
You know what? Like for me, I know that this is like pure nostalgia. It's so silly. It really is. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I would buy it. I did buy it again on Amazon. So I have it on DVD and for another 24 hours on Amazon. So I guess I rented it. I rented it. Well, there's no
overall, there's like so much to admire in the film. Like we touched on, the costumes are incredible and there's so much of them. The sets, the cast are great. It looks beautiful. The script's kind of fun and clever in a lot of places. In some scenes, it's really great. So like it does a lot of things really, really well. And the music as well. I enjoy the music too.
Yeah, it makes me want to actually hook up my DVD player, which I really need to do, and watch Pillow Talk, because I have that on DVD and I haven't watched in a while. Jackie?
I did buy it only for lack of resources, but it was enjoyable. Like I said, it leaned into being parody a couple of times, which made me question things. But overall, I would give it a 5-day. If someone said, let's sit down and watch Down with Love, or someone turned it on, I'd sit and watch it.
Nice.
Well, if you have fond memories of 1960s rom-coms or have any other opinions or just want to call and chat, give us a call, leave us a message on our quick drop 909-601 and MLF 909-601-6653. Twat us at the Twitters or leave a message at our Spotify for Podcasters account, and you can be featured on a future episode.
Next week, if you dare, join us for the 2000 film Memento, which is perfect for my bird-sized brain that forgets everything. This is my time to shine, people. The whole premise of this movie is this bitch don't remember a thing. I don't want to miss a thing, but I miss everything. Oh, but I have to thank Gavan for joining us. I hope you had a lot of fun. We had fun, and hope you can come back and do another movie with us.
I loved it, and it was a great excuse to check out this movie again, and it was great to finally talk to you guys and not just chat comment sections.
We had a blast. Yeah, thank you for joining us and staying up
so
super late.
My pleasure. Anytime.
And as always, be kind and rewind.